Yeah, just let me know. Hello, and welcome to the first election forum of the year sponsored by WOWDLP, your hometown homegrown radio station. I'm Eric Bond. I host Talk of Tacoma on Sundays on WOWD, and happy to be joined by candidates for the Ward 4 City Council seat, which is recently been, well, I won't say vacated, but a longstanding council member, Terry Siemens, who's been in that role for 20 years or more, has decided to take a break and spend more time with Joyce, which I think is a great decision. And so we have two candidates coming forward to talk to voters and explain, why they are the better candidates to take that position. I'm joined by Kurt Gilbert and Tony. Tony Carey. Thank you. Sorry. And tonight for the forum, we're going to be running through a series of questions. I want to emphasize that these are fairly general questions because we're doing two forums this evening. There's a Ward 6 forum immediately after this forum, and we want to make sure that we have time for both of the forums. Now, this is being broadcast live over Tacoma City TV channels. It'll be available on YouTube, I suppose up until the election. And I will also say that next Sunday, if you tune in to WOWD 94.3 FM, you'll be able to hear a rebroadcast of this over the radio station. So that's a little bit of the details about the forum itself. Now, as I mentioned, our time is limited, so I'll be asking fairly general questions. I'm asking for you two candidates, and thank you, by the way, for joining us, to really frame, what your thoughts are on a couple of big issues in Tacoma Park, and you'll have a chance to distinguish yourself from each other. I want to emphasize that WOWD is nonpartisan, so the questions are designed to allow you to best present your own views. Tonight, there will be no gotcha questions, so if you disagree with the way I've posed a question during your time, feel free to let me know. So with that in mind, let's begin with opening statements. Each of you will have 3 minutes to present an opening statement. And Tony Carey, would you like to begin?
Sure. Thank you, Eric. Good evening, everyone. My name is Tony Carey. I was born in Ghana and moved to United States in 1973. I became a U.S. citizen 45 years ago. I lived on Maple Avenue for 34 years. I studied at the University of the District of Columbia and thereafter studied and acquired my certification as an accredited real estate agent and worked professionally in that capacity for 25 years. I was a tenant organizer and president of the Tenants Association in DC before moving to Tacoma Park. And I'm also president of the Parkview Towers Tenants Association on Maple Avenue. I've been practicing Buddhism for my entire adult life. I believe in the dignity and worth of every human being, and everything I do is to express my love for my neighbors. Thank you.
Thank you. And Kurt Gilbert?
Yes. Thank you, Eric. Thank you for having us. My name is Kurt Gilbert. I'm a longtime member of this community. My mom brought my brother and I here from Northeast Washington, D.C. when I was 5 years old. We moved up on Hudson Avenue for a couple of years, and then she moved us down to Maple Avenue. My mom was a single parent, low income, needed a lot of assistance from the community, from the county. I lived in this community until I was 23 years old, and this community raised me. Our Boys and Girls Club, our recreation department were my father figure. Affordable housing is the only reason I sit here before you today. And I'm very grateful to this community for, bringing me to this point. At 15 years old, met a man named Calvin Avant, who was our youth exposed to success, and he was worked for the recreation department. He was our youth outreach worker. He taught all of us about civil service, and I've been serving since. I was assigned to a mentor and coach at that age, and I kept up with my civil service up until I was 23 years old, and continued after joining our police department, where I served until I was for 27 years. I retired in 2020, and during my tenure, I did a lot of community service, community outreach. I was on the police department's first community-oriented policing team. I worked with our citizens associations to solve problems, and our apartment managers, I organized them to keep drugs and crime activity out of our apartment buildings. So I'm no stranger to organizing in our community and solving problems. That's where my strength is, and I look forward to continuing to do that as your council member.
Thank you, Councilmember Gilbert. And boy, I rushed through things at the beginning. There was something I wanted to say. So before we get further on, just a reminder that mail-in voting should begin on Monday, next Monday, so a week from this coming Monday on or actually it starts on the 6th. I think that's Sunday, but obviously the post office is closed. So you can begin mail-in voting if you have your mail-in ballot, and I have no idea when ballots are going to arrive at your homes. The in-person voting will be available right here at the community center downstairs. There's a box where you can leave your ballot as well. On Election Day, November 5th, the community center will be open for in-person voting if that is your preference as well. I also want to emphasize that every resident of Tacoma Park, the age of 16 and older, should be eligible to vote. And if you are not registered, you can go to the City of Tacoma Park website, and there's information there about making sure that you are registered and that you are able to vote in the city. And one final reminder, obviously there's a presidential election also happening, and a state and a county election happening as well on that day. The city election is held separately. So if you are going to a polling place on election day to make your choices for the state, for the presidential election, for county races, you will still need to then vote for Tacoma Park. So just want to make sure that all of you listeners do have that information. Okay, so let's start with you, candidate Gilbert, then. And what I'd love to hear, I just got a note, so I might as well read it. Let me see if I can pull it up about this. City ballots will be mailed to arrive mid-October. Drop boxes for ballots at the community center and the recreation center as well. Okay, thank you for that, whoever sent that. All right, so my first question is specific to Ward 4, which is, I think one of the most historically important wards, maybe the most historically important ward of the city, depending on how you think about things. Candidate Gilbert, can you tell me what you see as the biggest challenges that Ward 4 faces and how you plan to address those challenges?
I know one of the issues that I've been hearing during my travels and walking and talking to members of our community is uh, the concern of affordable housing and rent stabilization, and whether or not um, we will, and I say we because I live at 7520 Maple Avenue, and I live amongst a strong Ethiopian contingent and immigrant community, and they love it here and they want to be able to stay here. And I know that's a major concern. I know in January we had a scare where the owner announced that he was selling the property, and everyone was very fearful that they would have to move. And thank goodness for our housing community development team. They stepped in, gave us guidance. We learned about our first rights to refusal. We organized as a tenant association, of which I'm on the board, and we eventually redesignated our ownership rights to a development company, and we're looking forward to what's to come on our property. I know that there's a property down the street that has those same concerns, and they're even more fearful, and that's a big concern for me. And we need to address that, and that's Parkview Towers. And I understand there's been some headway made there with MHP, and hopefully they'll be able to get some construction done on that property in December. And it struck with chord with me when at the nominating caucus when the young lady said, "I don't know if I'm going to come home and find my children in rubble." And I shared Tony's concern and that members of that building, and that's a huge issue that I'm looking to tackle along with the other council members. But it looks like there's some hope coming, and that hopefully they can get some work done there and ease the minds of those residents.
Mr. Carey?
Yeah, thank you. For me, actually, one of my main concern is about the MMPA. And what it is that the MMPA actually is upzoning that will encourage owners to sell, and also builders will come in and build probably taller buildings, apartment buildings, and actually that can that can displace a lot of the residents, including myself, because I live in Parkview Towers. And actually, as the Tenants Association president, we were able to, achieve in terms of having the MHP work with us in terms of, getting some things done. But we still have some a little bit things, we got ways to go. Let me put it that way. And that's the main reason why I got into this campaign. That is the main reason, because for me, affordable housing, rent stabilization, and just last year, Parkview Towers, our rents went up 5.8%. And I think that we have to mobilize. And based on that, when I heard about the MMPA, for some reason, I said, wow, I've been living here for 34 years. And it seems like later on, I don't know how long I'm going to be here. And talking to, I started the campaign and knocking on doors and talking to the residents and explaining what MMPA does. That, so many of them have been living here for years. And when I explained that, they found out that, wow, we have to do whatever we can to support you. So to me, that's a big concern, for myself and for the residents.
And just a remind you, when I raise my hand, it's just to let you know that there's 30 more seconds, so you can, finish your thoughts. Um, okay, each of you will have a minute for any follow-up on this first question, which is the biggest challenge that you see for the ward. You can distinguish yourself from each other, or clarify or add anything else you would like to. So, Councilmember Gilbert.
I believe Tony. Candidate.
And council member. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Council member Carey. So you're both. Okay, so you've both been called council members. We're moving back to candidate now. Okay, okay. Candidate Gilbert.
I believe Tony was talking about the minor master plan. The area of the Washington Venice Hospital, along with the Maple Avenue corridor down to Philadelphia Avenue, was rezoned by council to allow for building up and for any developers that might want to come in. I know that's a huge concern for everyone. I have pretty good communication and contact with people within the city, and I've had some conversation. And what put my mind to ease is to know that there's going to be some incentives offered to developers if they come in, that if they're going to do work, that they'll get tax breaks. But the talk now, and it's still in talks, is that they'll have to keep it affordable housing, and they won't displace anyone. So, just in case anyone's worried about that.
Candidate Carey.
Yeah,
Sorry, you're gonna get my title. Candidate Carey.
Actually, in terms of the Hospital Hill, I do agree with that for new housing, but my main goal is to basically new housing construction on Hospital Hill. It should be 50% for all new housing, all new construction, instead of the 15% set by the county.
Okay, thank you, candidate. And we're going to go one more time on this question. Although the next question is, well, actually, let's move on, because the next question is about housing. So I want to ask about housing. The Tacoma Park City Council passed a housing and economic development strategic plan in 2019, and I am interested in your thoughts on how well you think the city is accomplishing its goals to provide adequate housing and affordable housing, and what your thoughts are on what you would do on city council specifically when it comes to housing. And Mr. Candidate Carey, we'll start with you.
Okay. My main concern, as I just said earlier, basically rent stabilization and affordable housing. What I basically will try to achieve, if I'm fortunate to be elected to the council, is to have some consensus with the council members, and work with them in terms of finding ways that we can to help the residents in Ward 4, because based on the MMPA, a lot of them are really not comfortable with what it is now, basically. So that's one of my concerns. And also property taxes are too high. So that's also one issue that I will be fighting on.
Okay, great. Thank you. And Candidate Gilbert?
Definitely working with the the very smart people that are already on council right now, and learning as much about what legwork has been done so far. Again, I've had some conversations, and I like the idea that, and that's already happening. So many tax incentives are being offered to our apartment buildings, and as a result, you know, our homeowners are paying, you know, a lot of taxes for some of the special services that we have, and we have a lot of great services here in the community. So yeah, working with the council to learn what they've been doing and how we can offer where we can find those incentives for developers to come in, do good work, because we definitely need the economic development. We need to strengthen our tax base somehow, so that our homeowners in our residential areas aren't incurring the cost every year at some point. That would be nice. So we have to look at areas where we could do some economic development, and we have to consult with our residents and our constituents and find out what things they would like to have, and continue those discussions about what incentives we can offer to our developers when they come in, and make sure that when they do, that they're going to continue with the ideals of this community, this city, that we want to keep it affordable. We want to continue to stabilize the rent so that people like me, people who grew up like me, can continue to come to this community and thrive and reap the benefits that we have today.
Okay, thank you. And instead of going immediately to 1 minute, follow-ups, I actually want to follow up myself on a couple of issues that came up. So I hear two issues from your responses. One is about tax credits. One is about the MMPA, which is the Minor Master Plan Amendment. So let's start there. I'm curious about the thoughts of each of you on both of those approaches the city is taking towards housing. The Minor Master Plan Amendment was hotly debated here in the city during the last council, and the city did choose to, by a majority vote, to approve the plan of Montgomery Planning to their plan on the Minor Master Plan Amendment to amend our minor master plan. And so let's start then. I know Mr. Carey, you have brought it up several times. If you were on the city council when that came before you, what would your vote have been?
In terms of MMPA,
Yes.
oh, definitely I would have voted it down, because where I stand now, as a renter, along with my constituency, and that I have talked to since I got into this campaign, and like I said earlier, most of them had no clue about this MMPA, and when I explained to them that, of course, it's up to the owners who owns the building to sell the property if they choose to, and then if that were to happen, then builders will come in, and then reconstruct, and basically they will be displaced. We will be displaced if that were to happen. And so I am really concerned, and my constituency, they are very, very concerned. And most people, when I told them that, they say, wow, yes, I'm concerned, you got my vote, And so if I were, a member of a council, I still have to learn a lot in terms of that. But, I will explain to my council members that, hey, this is the situation that I am facing, that my constituencies are facing. And, most of my constituency are struggling, so if that were to happen, where are they going to be relocated to? That to me, that is really deplorable. incomprehensible. You know, so to me, that's one part in terms of Maple Avenue that I really dislike. For some of us who, like I'm retired, I still work as a part-time real estate agent. So being on fixed income and still, basically struggling to make ends meet and thinking about over my head that, hey, I've been here for 34 years and later on I may not be able to, afford what is coming. So to me, that's a big concern. So I will have to learn to, deal with my councilman on where this will go, and whatever that I can do, every fiber in my bones, I will try to do what I can do for that.
Okay, thank you, candidate. And same question to you, candidate Gilbert.
Yeah, I agree with Tony to a certain degree. It certainly is something to be concerned about, and I understand the fear. Again, me and my neighbors stared down the barrel of it in January when it was announced to us that the property was being sold. So I understand those fears. But again, our minds were put to ease fairly quickly when we learned again about our first rights to refusal, and I would be glad to walk any resident community that faces the same thing through that process. We have rights. We have a first rights to refuse. So we did that, and it worked out well for us. And we have a developer who we think can come in and do the construction necessary to make the building sound, and hopefully we can live in it for many more years to come. I believe that can happen with the other buildings as well. The rezoning, if you're asking me what I would have voted, I would have loved to been a fly on the wall in the meetings with the council so I can make a more intelligent decision on what I would say. But I'm going to say, from what I understand so far, why not? Yes, because the rezoning only allows for the space, the ability to make so many changes if necessary. Doesn't mean it has to happen or will happen anytime soon. And again, the idea of having the economic development, especially on that hospital space, where I'm understanding there could be some building of businesses, and I'm all for giving people opportunity to have businesses in this community, and I look forward to knowing what's going to come. I know what the concerns are, traffic and things of that nature. And those are scary things to think about. And people are we're sacred about our roads and our travel in our communities. But I think it could be done. It could be done with some thought and care and concern for the community. And it could work out, again, for our tax base and our residents who own homes would probably benefit from maybe not having their taxes raised as much if we can bring in some development that would increase our tax base.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to go with some of these asking for longer responses, because I think, housing really is a big issue right now for many people in the city. And it, is one where there are clear differences of approaches among what residents think would be the best path forward. So I want to talk a little bit more about housing, and then we'll move to some other issues. And we'll start with you first, candidate Gilbert. I think you were the one who mentioned that there is a plan that the council is now considering to offer some new tax credits the purpose of which would be to expand the number of units in the city. The council has previously made has passed resolution to expand the number of units available in the city. So I'm wondering about, this is going to be kind of a two-part question. I'm wondering about your disposition on this approach of using tax credits. And second of all, the city of Tacoma Park is unique in Montgomery County in terms of the amount of affordable housing that it has. What is your commitment to maintaining the affordable housing, even as the council is considering these tax credits? Does that make sense? A two-part question?
Yeah, sure. And I'll answer the second part first. My commitment's going to be very strong. And as I said before, we have to fight like hell to make sure that this community remains a safe haven, a place that people with low economic standing can come and again benefit from the many services that we have here in this community. It's been that way since after the Civil War. This community has opened its arms to people of color and immigrants for decades, and we need to maintain that. That's what the city's built on. It's not the city of Tacoma Park if we don't have that affordable housing and rent stabilization, so people who don't have a lot of money can come here and live. Again, I came from Northeast Washington, D.C. I still have family there. Nothing against my cousins, and I love them to death, but I wonder sometimes what would have happened to me if I hadn't been able to come here. So to answer your question, I'm going to fight to make sure we can keep it affordable. The idea of the rezoning so that the construction can happen when it needs to happen, I think is necessary. These buildings aren't going to last forever, and they're breaking down now. And if we can start looking now, and again, those are talks. We're just talking about at this point the tax credits that we can offer. That kind of stuff's already happening with our buildings. We're not getting a big revenue from our buildings. They are already getting tax breaks. That's the only way they can keep our apartments stabilized, the rent stabilized. We're $400 below the median around us. So, and that's happening because they're getting tax breaks. And I don't see it if a developer is going to come in here having to spend millions of dollars to renovate our buildings, how they're going to do it and make a profit without some kind of tax break. So it's going to be a difficult talk for a while. We're staring down the barrel of some difficult times, but again, there's some smart people up here, and I look forward to joining them and helping them make some decisions along with the community. We can figure it out.
Okay, thank you, candidate. And the same question for you, candidate Carrion. Just a reminder, so the idea of using tax credits as an incentive for expanding the number of housing units, and then how does the council then make sure to ensure that housing is affordable, if in fact that is your position, which I believe it is?
Well, I think when it comes to the tax credits, I think the impact of the tax credits is unknown at this time, and nobody knows how much it's going to cost. I would like to, someone to tell me they have an idea how much it will cost. And at the same time, while we have MMPA, which is, burden on some of our, constituency, I think that, there are some financial opportunities that could be explored otherwise, in different ways. That's just my thinking. That there are other ways that they can do. We can think about doing instead of bringing something else, on top of what is going on now. I just think it's a little bit much to swallow at this point. And I also think that I support 2 possible new infill apartments built in apartment buildings in Franklin, like in Franklin, new construction, over there or something like that, or on Hospital Hill, and basically, it should be like at least 50%, affordable housing on those new constructions. I think that should be fair enough. I think that, you know, basically the city is thinking too much about, which don't get me wrong. I know there are some buildings definitely needs rehabilitation. Definitely because maybe too old. But sometimes there are other ways that we can come up instead of doing it another way that would displace some people. So in terms of Hospital Hill and some of the infill on Franklin, of course, good new construction would be great over there and things like that. But I think that jumping the gun on the tax credits, I think that nobody knows the impact and all that. It's just, I think, too much for the city to swallow at this time. That's what I would say.
Okay, thank you, candidate. And so we'll move on from housing in just a minute, but I want to make sure that each of you have a chance to follow up with any other thoughts or respond to any comments made by the other candidates. So, candidate Gilbert.
Yeah. Again, what happened with 7520 Maple Avenue, the Duville? I think it's a good test case. Again, we have a good developer that's coming in. They have affordable housing and rent stabilization on the forefronts of their minds. They're nonprofit, and they have already, they've done their survey on the property, and they figured out how they can, renovate the property, and hopefully, again, it'll be up for a long, long time. So we're feeling okay over there. It sounds like the same thing can happen at their property, and if it can happen at their property, which is 11 stories, it could happen with the others. So there's work to be done, I think, in December on their property, and it sounds like they've gotten approval for to start the construction.
Great. Thank you, Councilman or candidate. Can I call each of you Mr.? Is that fine?
You can do Kurt if you like, Eric.
I'm trying not to, if Mr. will work, we'll move to Mr. Okay. So, Mr. Carey, say any follow-up questions or any follow-up comments?
Well, what I would just basically say is that the heart of my campaign is to protect rent stabilization and to promote affordable housing. Okay, and and also basically to also preserve, property taxes in terms of come across property owners, who are, basically some retired citizens who basically feel that property taxes are too high, and some is driving them out of the city. So I think those things are a concern to me.
Okay, great. Thanks. Let's move on to economic development. And I'm interested in your thoughts on how the city is doing in terms of economic development and any specific ideas you have aside from housing on how the city could be promoting economic development or how it should be promoting economic development. So, Mr. Carey, we'll start with you.
First of all, I strongly support additional housing in Tacoma Park, that can broaden the tax base. That includes new housing on Hospital Hill along University Boulevard and New Hampshire, where there's ample space, an opportunity, for new businesses. But commercial development is the key for expanding economic development in the city limits. I also want to see some new businesses on Hospital Hill but above all, along New Hampshire Avenue and with completion of the Purple Line along with University Boulevard would be great. Rather than housing tax credits, why not explore new business tax credits? That's where the financial opportunities lie.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Gilbert?
Yeah, as I mentioned before, Eric, I'm all for economic development. I think the businesses up in Old Town are thriving. We're seeing a lot of business come to them, and if we can find opportunity and locations for additional businesses that would make the shopping experience better for us here in Tacoma Park, that's great. I know that the thought is to do 50-50 at the hospital with businesses and residential, and I'm semi-excited about it. Providing the tax credits for the residential development is something that I need to dig deeper into and how it's going to impact our residents. But yeah, economic development is going to strengthen our tax base, and if it's going to help our residents and our homeowners, then that's going to be good for our community.
Great, thank you. And Mr. Carey, any other clarifying comments on economic development, or as you said, commercial development?
Well, basically just about what we touched on, and I think a new economic development we already mentioned in terms of the hospital health. That I think that will help.
Okay. Any clarifying comments?
No, I just add earlier in my years law enforcement, when I started here, I remember us not having a stronger tax base, and as a result, we couldn't get a lot of things that we needed for the police department. And I'm sure that extended to other facets of city government and city management and some of the other departments. Then we started to see some, Popeyes had been here for a while, so we got a Chuck E. Cheese, a Taco Bell, and I'd be interested to know what that did for our tax base. And so with those things in mind, that we have those businesses here, and I'm sure they're helping a lot. Why not, if we have the space, bring in more?
Okay. I want to talk about the budget, but I want to talk about the budget from the direction of city services. So instead of from the budget down, from city services up. So the city of Tacoma Park provides a wide array of city services. We have our own library, we have our own police department, we have our own public works department, we have our own recreation department. Given constraints on the budget, I'm wondering what your thoughts are in terms of the services the city is providing. Should the city be providing more services, fewer services? Do you have any approach to how you would address city services when it comes to the budget process? And well, let's see, I think we'll start with you, Mr. Gilbert. I think that's where we are.
Okay. Our services that we have in this community is second to no one. There's a reason why the bottom of, I believe it was Ward 3, many years ago, decided to leave Prince George's County and become a part of Tacoma Park. Our public works department, for as long as I can remember, and as a law enforcement commander, lieutenant, I coordinated every event in this community, from its fireworks to the parade to the one in October, the street festival, and our public works department was always Johnny on the spot and make sure that those events went down without incident. Our police department is second to none. They're well trained, and they do everything that they need to do right here. We don't. This police department doesn't depend on the Montgomery County Police Department for much. As a matter of fact, before I retired, Montgomery County was calling us to help them with things like emergency response teams and our K-9s, etc. So we set a standard for municipalities as far as what our services are to our community. However, it comes with a price. And as a community, and again, our residents are paying the heavier toll for that. And we have to make a decision at some point if we want to give up something. But as long as it can be managed, and in my talks with the city manager, they have a plan. And we've been operating a little bit in a deficit, but and we're running out of money in some regards. But he has things stabilized, it looks like. So I just think that we need to work hard to make sure the services that we have, because it's what makes Tacoma Park great. And I can't think of anything I would want to lose as a resident here.
Thank you, Ken. And Mr. Carey?
What I would say is basically talking about city services. Well, I think the budget is what provides city services. So let's talk about the budget. And I think the biggest challenge actually is for the mayor and the city council, to balance the budget. I think it's no secret that the city spends far more money than it takes in. And I think that the emergency COVID Recovery Act helped the city for the last 3 years, and actually, the money will run out, at the end of this year. So, city will have to find the money elsewhere. Yes, it's true that the main priority for me is protecting tenants. But it's also true that many middle-income families are having to move out of the city because they can't pay their taxes, property taxes. I think that we can't keep raising taxes. We can't keep raising taxes. That will drive more and more of our families, out of the city. To me, that's a concern. When we talk about the city taxes, I also think I think something that is really missing is a teenage work program. It's really missing. I think we need something that will keep the teenagers off the street. I would say, well, why don't we basically cut a couple of patrol cars? The budget of the police, basically. You have to cut the money sometime, somewhere, and use it for that purpose or some other purpose. So I think in terms of the city services, that's one avenue we can look at. And I think until we can stimulate more business development, we will have to consider more budget cuts.
Thank you. Mr. Gilbert, any clarifying statements?
No, I agree a little bit with Tony. We definitely have to keep our operating costs down. But I know that there have been some, not cuts, but just there have been some positions that were open in certain departments within the city that haven't been filled. So I know that the city manager is thinking along those lines and trying to be responsible. Again, we have been operating in a deficit. The ARPA money that we had um, from the pandemic, we are running out. So, and we've had to operate from our reserves a little bit. So we definitely need to be more mindful and responsible about, our services and keeping our operating budget at a minimum.
Great, thank you. And Mr. Carey, any clarifying comments?
Oh, that's fine with me now.
Okay, great. All right. Um, let's talk about climate response. The city has taken a position to be a leader when it comes to climate. It set a goal, among many environmental goals, it's set a goal to achieve net zero emissions by 2035. And we keep getting closer and closer to that date. Um, how do you think the city is doing when it comes to its sustainability and climate plan? And what thoughts do you have on how the city could better address this commitment? And Mr. Carey, we'll start with you.
Well, I would say we have just seen what climate change and hurricane can do to large part or major areas, of our country. Can you imagine what would happen if 24 inches of rain were to fall in Tacoma Park in 18 hours? I think Maple Avenue will be washed away. Maple Avenue is, as we know, Maple Avenue is built on top of one of the largest creeks in the area, Brashears Run. And it's very possible that heavy rains can cause major floods down our streets. So that's always also a concern for me on that. And flooding is also a reason for rebuilding the library that is costing us so much money, But so far, the city does not have a true climate change response. They don't have a true climate change response strategy to prevent such disasters. We keep thinking that existing infrastructure is adequate. I don't think so. We need a real climate change strategy. That I would think, yeah. A second concern I have is that more buildings on Maple and on Hospital Hill will require new roads and new bridge on Maple Avenue, new stormwater protections, maybe more schools. All that can upset the environment, and who will pay for those infrastructure work? And I'm really, really dedicated to the environment, simply because, as we all see it, whether on television or wherever that is. And I guess this concern from most young people. I think for older people, I can't speak for everyone here. Some of us take climate, environment for take it, somehow not that much serious. But the younger kids that I talk to, they are very, very, very concerned. It really, really concerns them, and it does concern me greatly. So I think that whatever, if I'm lucky enough, to be a member of the council, I'll fight with everything I got in terms of pushing the city to do something about that.
Thank you. And Mr. Gilbert?
Can you clarify
yeah.
the question for me?
Yeah. So the city has made a commitment to responding to climate change and to achieve net zero emissions by 2035. The city also has a sustainability manager I think there's two sides of this issue, obviously. So, kind of doing our part globally, but also what are we doing locally? So, how do you feel the city is doing in terms of sustainability and its environmental goals?
Yeah, and in studying at the University of Maryland University College, one of my favorite classes was environmental sustainability, and I've been preaching it ever since I took that class. I know my family and friends are tired of hearing it. You got to do the best you can to reduce your environmental footprint. Um, turn off the water, don't leave it running, and all that stuff. And our carbon footprint in this city, I know that's important, and it's been talked about. And we have the hybrid cars now. I think the police department has a few, Public Works. I'm not sure what other departments have them. So from that standpoint, I think we're trying. In regards to the environment and some of the superstorms now that are impacting our city, I know that's a huge concern for some of our residents and how the water runoff is impacting their properties. And for a lot of them, if you're not in one of those FEMA designated areas, or if you don't have, flood insurance, you're on your own. So I think it's important that we address this. I think the LIDC project that we embarked upon, I don't know, a year or two ago, that determined that our stormwater infrastructure was outdated. But I do understand that Public Works and Daryl Braithwaite have been working on some of the storm water drainage systems that were recommended from this project. And as they go along, I think they're just going to be making some changes to them as they go. So hopefully that'll have a positive impact when we have these superstorms. But we do need to have some more talks about some emergency preparedness and things of that nature in regards to climate change and what would happen if we do have a severe storm.
Okay, great. Thank you. And Mr. Carey, any follow-up or clarification?
Oh, all I can add to it is I think our city could do more, in terms of the environment. From what I hear right now, much is not being done.
Thank you. And Mr. Gilbert?
Yeah, again, I know that there's the project that they had done identifies areas where we have extensive water runoff, and our residents can actually go onto our website and see if their home is in that area. So I know it's on the forefront of the minds of our council and Public Works, and I'd like to see if we could provide some assistance to some of these homeowners whose homes are being impacted by this, who may have flood damage, etc. I'm not sure if we have any monies in the budget to help them out, but at least we've done that much, and I think that's a step in the right direction. So it's not like we're not doing anything, but we need to keep working in that direction.
Great, thanks. Since we have a little bit of extra time, I'm going to throw another question in here. And it has to do with issues that a couple of times I've heard this issue come up, right? The city has some power, but it also is surrounded by entities that also have power and sometimes greater power. So, for example, zoning, the city does not set zoning. The county sets zoning, for example. Issues around stormwater extend outside of our community. The state highway administration has a couple of highways running through our city. So I'm wondering if you can address how the council can show leadership when it comes to other entities that we interact with, and then how you specifically can be a leader when it comes to addressing community issues that Tacoma Park has limited power over? A little bit of a broad question, but it's I think an important one for City Council. We'll start with you, Mr. Carey.
Well, I'll be honest in this. I don't have a specific, basically, in terms of whether it's stormwater or rainfall or whatever that is. In terms of the picking a particular issue on the, on that environmental issue. What I would say though is that I'm in a learning process, on that, and I'm very, very willing to learn. Actually, the last couple of days, I have talked to a couple of environmentalists, basically, that actually donated to my campaign too, and I heard their concerns, and I learned so much that day. Unfortunately, I was knocking on doors and stuff like that, so I didn't even have a pen with me. I could have asked a pen and write things down, but it was such on a short time that I got phone numbers and everything that I will be calling to learn him and others, and I'm willing to learn a whole lot since I'm so concerned about this issue from here on and see what I can do on those terms.
Thank you. And Mr. Gilbert?
Yeah, working across boundaries is nothing new to me. I'm no stranger to that. During my 27 years in law enforcement here in the city of Tacoma Park, we had to reach out to other jurisdictions, whether it be the state police, or Montgomery County Police, Prince George's County Police, and working in coordination with them to solve problems. I've done the same thing with other jurisdictions in regards to things other than crime. And so, again, working across boundaries, knowing the resources, and being able to bring the resources back here to Tacoma Park to serve whatever issue it may be is something that I've done for many years. I'm a proven problem solver, and again, I coordinated it along with, I shouldn't say coordinated, but handled one of the largest civil disturbances that I think the city has ever experienced here some years ago. And I had to do that in coordination with other jurisdictions. So sometimes as a small entity, you're going to need to bring in resources from somewhere else. And we've done that historically here in Tacoma Park for decades. And so that's something I have a lot of experience with, and it comes very easy to me, and I would be able to do that if I'm selected as councilman.
Okay, great. Thank you, Mr. Gilbert. And Mr. Carey, do you have any follow-up comments?
No.
Okay, all right. Well, as we're kind of winding towards the end of our time together and getting ready for candidates for Ward 6 to come forward, oftentimes around elections, we tend to talk about problems. But I'm wondering if each of you could identify an opportunity or opportunities that you see for the next council. In other words, what opportunities does the city have in terms of what it might be able to do next through the next council? I'll start with you, Mr. Carey.
Can you clarify the question a little bit?
Yeah, it's a very general question, but
Mhm.
I asked you at the top of our forum together what you see as the biggest problem for your ward. Now I'm thinking citywide.
Well, yeah.
Okay,
No,
what opportunities or what opportunity does the city now face that you want to see the city take advantage of?
I would really say basically will be, in terms of, to me, that would be really for the city to really have a bigger concern for the my Ward 4 constituency, in terms of MMPA, Since this is already been voted on, I don't know what else they can do. I don't know. They can bring it back. I mean, change it or whatever that is. In term, that would be. I don't know how that will go, but to me, that's a big concern that I have. I don't know what the city can do actually to be able to help the constituency so that they won't be displaced. That's a concern. I know that some people think probably long time. It will be a long time from today, or maybe many years. But you never know. Many years. I mean, it could be 5, 6, 7, 8. Some of the residents want to be here for a long time, 20, 30 years or whatever that is. So even if it's say 5, 7, 10 years, some going to be longer. At that time, some people will still be displaced. My concern is for the city to do something about that.
Great, thank you. And Mr. Gilbert, and I apologize for the general nature of the question, but I'm genuinely interested to know from each of you, like, what opportunities do you see possible for the city?
I know we talked earlier about having to stabilize the budget and be careful about our the monies that are going into our workforce. But I would love to see a little bit more youth outreach. We have opportunities to, especially with our youth council now in play, to reach out to more young people and educate them in so many areas. We've already set a great example for jurisdictions around us about how to maintain affordable housing and how to just have inclusion. Now is the time for us to bring our immigrant community to the forefront and be part of our government. This government is for them too. And for a lot of them, they feel marginalized. And that's one of the reasons why I came back to this community to live, is to kind of lead in that regard. I learned through our little scare in January with the building being sold, just how intelligent a lot of people who are here from other countries are. And once you can get through the challenge of the communication barrier, you understand their thoughts and just what they can bring to the table. And I think there's a beautiful example for us, opportunity for us to show other jurisdictions how we can keep that going. We can keep the affordable housing going and the rent stabilization going, and we can renovate our properties, and we can step our game up with economic development so we can strengthen our tax base and hopefully get some relief for our residents, homeowners. I think that's our opportunity, is to show them, how to do it, how to be strong and not give in to gentrification, for lack of a better word. Allowing the haves to come in and move the have-nots out.
Great, thank you. And Mr. Carey, do you have any?
No.
Okay. All right. Well, then we will wind up then with closing comments from each of you. And let's see, we started with you, Mr. Carey, so we'll start with you, Mr. Gilbert. Closing statement about your candidacy for council seat for Ward 4.
Yeah, thanks. And thanks again, Eric, for doing this. I want to say thank you to Terry Siemens and his lovely wife, Joyce. Terry endorsed me, and that was one of the most humbling and humbling experiences and a big honor to me. I think we all owe a great debt of gratitude to Terry and his wife for the many years of service they provided to the city. And those are big shoes to fill. My experience with problem solving and knowing this community and having good relationships with our department heads and knowing how things work here, I think will help us move forward in Ward 4. 27 years in law enforcement, and in protecting, or trying my best anyway, to protect the residents here, is what I've lived for since I was 15 years old. And I want to continue to do that regardless of the outcome of this election. And I'm looking forward to working with everybody here, including Tony, to move Ward 4 and the rest of this city forward.
Great. Thank you. And Mr. Carey?
Yeah, thank you, Eric. Anyway, what I would say basically is that for my closing statement, is that for 20 years, Councilman Siemens promised to protect the residents of Maple Avenue. But the very first time that staff from the County Planning Board presented the minor master plan amendment to the City Council, Mr. Siemens immediately said that he could definitely support the proposal. And he did. That's because he didn't understand the threats of displacement and the social inequities of the MMPA that threaten all of us who live here on Maple Avenue. I'm running because I need to defend the interests of my family and my neighbors. I will not give in to pressures of the planning board in the city. I may not be the smoothest talking candidate running for Ward 4. But let me ask if other candidates will be able to stand up to the chief of police, his previous boss. When the chief says he wants more patrol cars and a new canine unit, will he be able to challenge the housing and community development staff when they want more improving housing tax credit proposals? Will he consult the residents of Maple Avenue and the homeowners up on Ritchie when the mayor wants to increase property taxes? I'm the candidate who has grown from the high-rise apartments, who has organized to defend the interests of the everyday person who lives here. I'll defend my home of 34 years and that of my neighbors, because I know that we have no other alternative living situation than to remain in our homes. This is my promise to all residents of Ward 4. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. And thank you both. Thanks to our audience here in the council chambers, and thanks to those of you watching or perhaps listening in the future to this forum. I residents in the city and take on the role of city council, and I happen to know it's not an easy task, and it certainly is very time consuming. So, you know, both of you, thank you for your commitment to your community and stepping forward as candidates for the Ward 4 council seat. And with that, we will conclude this. Kind of feels like speed dating or something, you know. I think usually these go about 3 hours. But thank you very much. And we will reset at 8:30 with the Ward 6 candidates. And, you know, it's been a pleasure getting to know both of you a little bit better.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Welcome or welcome back to the second election forum sponsored by WOWD Tacoma Radio. I'm Eric Bond. I am the host of Talk of Tacoma, a weekly local affairs program on WOWD, 1 to 3 on Sundays. And we are talking now with candidates. I am talking with candidates for Ward 6 here in the upcoming city election happening on November 5th. And we are simulcasting at the moment across Tacoma TV channels. And I'll be rebroadcasting this conversation on October 6th on Tacoma Radio. So you can tune in again then and hear rebroadcast or let other people know about the rebroadcast. As I mentioned, Tacoma Park is holding its election again this year, and I'm joined by Councilmember Jason Small, candidate Ambroise Agose, and candidate Amy Weselek, all vying for the Ward 6 seat. A few words about the election. Ballots will be mailed out to residents of Tacoma Park, and you should be receiving them by mid-October. You do have a chance to vote by mail, and there is also the opportunity to vote throughout the month at the box downstairs in the lobby outside of the police station. So once you have a ballot and fill it out, you can deliver it in person or through the mail. You can also vote on election day if you need to. Every resident of the city age 16 and older is eligible to vote. So if you're unsure about your registration as a voter, you can go to the City of Tacoma Park website, tacomaparkmd.gov, go to the election page. There's information there about how you can ensure that you are registered for this election. One final comment, I think most of our listeners and viewers know this. We are holding another election on November 5th as a country, as a state, as a county. The city election is separate. So do not go to your polling place expecting to vote for the city election. Don't go to the lobby outside the police station and expect to vote for your presidential candidate. Two different elections happening on the same date. Okay, hopefully that gets through some of those details. More information always on the City of Tacoma Park website. A reminder, WOWD is nonpartisan. The questions I've organized for tonight are fairly broad. I'm giving each candidate a chance to define who they are and how they intend to address various issues. So with that, why don't we start with opening statements, and I'll start with you, Ms. Weselek. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Eric. Hi, my name is Amy Weselek. I have lived in Tacoma Park for over 12 years. Over 12 years ago, my wife and I were looking for a home to be able to raise our family in, and we were so thrilled to find the home we're in Hillwood Manor neighborhood near New Hampshire Avenue and Sligo Creek. We live there with our 2 daughters, and I really, truly love our neighborhood and community. And that's part of why I'm really excited to be running for City Council. My entire professional career and private has been about building community and about public service. All of my jobs have been at nonprofits. I have my master's in nonprofit management and public administration. For the last 10 years, I've been home with my children, teaching them and guiding them through a pandemic, and helping and serving at their different schools, including cooperative schools. And I am really excited that I have the opportunity to do more for Tacoma Park and for Ward 6. So I'm excited to share that I think my two biggest strengths for this election is that I am a clear communicator. I really care about talking directly to as many of the folks as I can and making sure that the folks who need to know things can know those things. And second, that I am excellent and good at having strong relationships with folks. I know lots of folks. I love connecting folks. That's kind of always what I like to do. So I look forward to bringing those skills to the City Council and to Ward 6 to help us all. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And Mr. Agose?
Good evening, everyone. And Eric, thank you again for all the time giving us opportunity to share our point of view about for our folks. So my name is Ambrose Agose. I reside in Tacoma Park in Kingwood Drive. So where I live with my family, my wife, and 5 lovely children. So I have graduated from the University of the District of Columbia and earned degree in water resources management. I worked for years for government and many private companies before I started my own businesses. So, as of today, I own 2 companies, one in transportation and the other one in healthcare, and both of those companies' offices are in Tacoma Park. So I am the current vice president of the New Hampshire Garden Citizen Association, which is the one of the largest neighborhood association in the World 6. I am also a director board member of the Tacoma Langley Cross Road Development Authority, which is one organization that stands for advocate for businesses and promote businesses. So as you may see, so why am I running? Why I'm running? So I'm running because I live here and raise my family here. So when you live somewhere or concerned about the place that you live, then you have to participate in building that community. That's what I'm doing. For me, living here, raising my family here, I want to participate building Tacoma Park. And the participate building your community or place that you live is to be part of decision maker. If you are not there, you don't participate in with a decision maker, then people will make a decision on your behalf, and then you will not have a choice to go with what they are saying. So for me, I like Tacoma Park, and then I have to be part of decision maker, and then I like being that. That's why I'm running, and to make sure that Tacoma Park is in good condition, is a place where everybody can live easily and good. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And Mr. Small?
Thanks, Eric. It's good to be here today. Here every Wednesday currently as the Ward 6 City Council representative. I'm very happy to be that person. I'd like to say thank you to my wife and my knucklehead sons for coming and spending the time here, just like everybody else who's both here and watching. It's a interesting thing being the Ward 6 City Council representative for a variety of reasons. This particular time, it was interesting for an additional reason because I was following after a very successful, competent, and charming mayor who was in this position before. One of the things that we discussed before I began this, was that we discussed the fact that she had spent a lot of time trying to introduce people to the ward or trying to get people to understand what the complexities of the issues were and bringing people from different areas of Tacoma Park to Ward 6 in order to shape some policy. And with candor, this is probably the only thing that I would disclose that the mayor has said to me during this thing was that she said that didn't particularly work very well. And so as a result, one of the things going into this campaign that I thought for certain of was that I was probably not necessarily electable because I had had previous experience as a municipal employee at a senior level. Those dynamics and the interests pertaining to that, like when you're actually doing the work and making sure the lights stay on and all those other things, are shaped by and crafted by policy, but they really have a lot to do with whether or not we have effective communication, transparency, and the interactions between the stakeholders are above board. And so one of the things that I've tried to do this whole time in this 2 years is try to make sure that all the stakeholders are above board or have clean hands, in the parlance of being an attorney, when you come to the table and start to talk about policy. Because everybody knows that everybody's going to have an interest or an interest area. And some of those interest areas are going to be wildly different than other people's. But it's the burden of anyone who is consistent and cares about democracy, who cared about pluralism when pluralism was in vogue, who cared about the post-racial society now or whatever else, to invest in their democracy with competent, cogent leadership at the point at which the inflection points of policy are made. And a lot of times, unfortunately, that has not been in this room for a variety of reasons. But I think that when you combine what happens in this room with the amount of advocacy I've put forward, I'm pretty proud of what I've done.
Okay, great, thank you. And unfortunately, we don't have lights set up tonight. And I forgot to mention, so when you are 30 seconds from the end of your time, I'll raise my hand, which doesn't mean stop now. It means you have 30 seconds, since my hand will be the flashing light. But thank you all three, and you get a chance to clarify and add more as we go forward. I thought of one more thing I want to mention, though. This ward presents one of the unique opportunities of Tacoma Park, in that instant runoff voting is operable in Ward 6, given that there are 3 candidates running. And so voters, I'm not going to go into what instant runoff voting is exactly, but there's information on the website. You choose, you rank your choices as a voter. And this is anyway, you get a chance to rank your choices. So we'll just leave it at that for now. Let's begin with a question about specific to Ward 6 and what you see as the greatest challenge that Ward 6 faces at the moment, what the next council faces when it comes to Ward 6. And we'll start with you, Mr. Small.
Thank you very much, Eric, for allowing me to go first on this one. This one is probably the most important to me. I think that if you think about the issues in Ward 6, we have issues of both engagement and public safety. As the corner of Tacoma Park, and having the Crossroads development right there as a part of the ward means that you have at least 3 to 5 real constituencies that you have to pay attention to there, including the people that don't necessarily live in Tacoma Park. The Chuck E. Cheese that's in Saul Centers is the number 3 Chuck E. Cheese in Maryland. The Walgreens that we have is the number 10 Walgreens in Maryland. And if you think about Maryland, you would think about what kind of volume is going through those places. In addition, because we're right on the edge, we have an opportunity to get, candidly, less attention historically than other places have gotten. If you look at the public space management plan, if you look at the way the MMPA is constructed and some of the other things, you'll see that there's a lot of spending that was not done there, given the fact that a lot of the personal property taxes and the majority of them come from there. And so I think that there's a level of alienation that's easy to feel in Ward 6, because there's a lot of different people who feel like no one is paying attention. So working on making sure that we continue to develop our public spaces in Ward 6, making sure that our relationships with the police and our understandings of what they are able to do and not do, given the nature of community policing and some of the ways in which they are currently hindered by the law, and some of the responsibilities and obligations of all the citizens and or business owners to kind of come together and put some more pressure on other actors to pay more attention to what is going on, whether it be traffic, whether it be potential crime issues, whether it be issues of public safety and effect or public civility, public drunkenness, drug use. Because we have a commercial center that is an active commercial center, we see a lot of that. And we see a lot of alienation from other places who like to talk about how terrible and wild and unfair it is there. And I would want to say that none of those things are true. And we need to continue to work forward on moving all of those things to a place where everyone feels comfortable every place.
Great, thank you. Mr. Gose?
Yeah, I love these questions because I can specifically say the question is clear. What is unique for WASIS? And then I think what is unique for WASIS as a problem is the word that has the more population, immigrant population. It's very important to know that. And second is the word that has population with a low income. So when it's clear like that, when you become elected as a city council, then you can clearly address the problem. It's very important. And for me, if I'm elected as a city council, then I will work to help or provide those with low income with more job opportunity, and then have those immigrants get involved, because as of now, because people are immigrant or they are low income, they don't have time and they don't think that they can participate with city activity. They're just away and they don't even have time. So see, traffic and security, that is not something unique for WASIS. All what in Tacoma Park have those with traffic and safety issue. I'm saying that because one of my chance this year for running is that I have chance to be member of a lot of organization in Tacoma Park. So this gives me to better know the city and know what is going on in the city wise, and then what is particular to WASIS. So again, at this moment, what is a unique problem for WASIS is we have a low income population, and then we have a population with immigrant, and then we need to work, help those with job opportunity, and then help them to get involved in city activities so that we can together improve the city. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And Ms. Westlake?
I would say that the greatest challenge for Ward 6 right now is basically the spillover effects of all of the construction with the Purple Line, in particular how it's impacting public safety. And I'll point out two main points. I mean, anyone who has driven through the intersection at New Hampshire Avenue and University Boulevard or anywhere near that knows what a mess it is. You probably had a lot of time to be there and to think about that, because it takes a long time to get anywhere around there. But I want to point out that with all of the construction, with everything moving, with all of the folks there, it's just downright dangerous for pedestrians. We really need to improve making things clear so that folks can be safe as they're walking to and from, because like Ambrose said, there's so many folks that are lower income in the area, and they are relying on walking and getting to the bus to get around. And the bus transit center there is one of the most popular, I think, in maybe even the whole state of Maryland. So I think that working to improve public safety at that intersection, as well as how the construction is impacting the neighborhoods. Right now, because of all the construction, cars are rerouting and they are driving through our more residential neighborhoods way faster than is safe. So I know a lot of folks, especially in New Hampshire Gardens, are very concerned with that. Literally, it's what everyone is telling me. It's the traffic, it's the cars going too fast, people not feeling like their kids can play outside safely. So with both of those problems, I think that the best way to try to deal with them is with working with other folks. Like Jason said, there's a lot of jurisdictions that have big stakes at the Crossroads area. So the only way you can get anything effectively changed is by having the relationships, knowing who to call, being able to work together with other folks to actually get your voice heard and to be able to make some progress. And I would say it's the same with within the residential neighborhoods. Like, what can we do to work with city staff, with public works, to try to get some incremental changes on our roads that will add up to slow down traffic. So that I definitely see as the greatest challenge right now.
Okay, great. And Mr. Small, any follow-up or clarifying comments?
If I could just have a minute on that, I would say that it's been a special kind of difficulty and torture, I would say, being responsible for the area where the Purple Line is flat. The reason for that is that they allege that the reason why all of the construction materials and everything else are being held where they are is because of where we are. But that has, and I do think Wendy is, or Amy, I'm sorry, is right about this. That the crux of the issue here is that there are a lot of stakeholders with vested interests who would rather not have to talk to anyone about either the failures that they have previously made or the inability to them to communicate effectively to either the business holders or otherwise in the area. And if I'm a lawyer and I kind of put that kind of pressure on people, and it seems to be effective.
Great, thank you. Mr. Gose?
Yeah, so wrong diagnosis will take us to wrong result. So we will not have the result. Like I said, the traffic and the security issue is for the entire city. It's not related to only Ward 6. And then I have chance, and then I'm a member of a traffic committee in Ward 6. And then I know what we have done about traffic control. When it come for the city to do something, I was surprised that whatever action the city has taken for now is being done in the whole city. Is not they did not do this only for the Ward 6. So like putting sign of traffic no through. So that means that the traffic issue or security or whatever, I have worked with a police department too. That one is something different. It's not related only to Ward 6. I'm aware of traffic issue in Ward 6.
We're going to get one more chance to go through. So,
Okay, thank you.
And Ms. Wesselek, any further comments?
No.
Okay, Mr. Small?
No, I next question.
Okay.
I
Well,
mean, I could talk about this all day, but
all right. Put in time for 2 1-minute follow-ups, but so Mr. Gose, if you want to finish your thought, you have a minute.
Yeah. So, like I was saying, the traffic and the security is something for the whole city. It's not really. I want my folks. I want people living in Ward 6 to be aware that it's not only related to Ward 6. I know, and especially this one, we are mainly talking about green side and the Wildwood. It's not only related to us. It's for the whole city. When you go to Ward 1, Ward 2, Ward 3, everybody has the traffic issue due to the Purple Line construction. And this will be something temporary. It will not be forever. And then, again, the main problem that we have in Ward 6 is low-income people. We need to help them, provide them with a job opportunity. We have a population with immigrants, and then we need to help them stop being fear of stopping having fear of when you are immigrant, we cannot do certain stuff.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. So we're going to start with you, actually. So we're going to talk about housing, and the city passed a housing strategic plan in 2019. Three goals are to preserve affordable housing in Tacoma Park, produce more housing and opportunities. We're going to just talk about the housing at this point. We'll talk about business separately, and also to protect renters and homeowners. So, what is your disposition towards Tacoma Park's housing policy? What do you see, and what do you propose in your position on the council in terms of the goals of the strategic plan?
Good question. So we have to remember that Tacoma Park is unique and has a history, and everything we do goes with a history. That being said, so I do support affordable house, building new houses and all that. But Tacoma Park support people since if I'm correct, Tacoma Park has a philosophy of supporting uh, those low income or having every place where everybody can live. That's the problem. So anything that we are doing, we have to keep that in mind. That whatever improvement we are having is to give opportunity to anyone to live here. Either you are rich or poor, we have to think about that. We have to keep that one in mind. Unless the city want to change the philosophy and say, hey, this place, because we are close to DC or whatever, anyone, we can do anything. No, this is a history city. Like, if I would say, like how the Georgetown, where even if they cannot do some improvement, even if the houses are small, are still small and all that. So Tacoma Park has history that we need to follow unless we decide to change our philosophy. That being said, so I support affordable house. I support a program where we build new houses, and then I support a program where we bring more businesses. But we have to do it looking at our history, and then have a clear program, have clear vision about what to do to not displace people, or what to do to at least have everybody have opportunity to live in Tacoma Park. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Wesselek?
Yeah. So housing is a national crisis. It is not just something that's facing Tacoma Park. So I think from that perspective, I kind of have 3 points. One is that it gives Tacoma Park an opportunity, right, to create new housing that shows the values that we hold here in Tacoma Park, to be building energy efficient buildings, to be building ones that are resilient to withstand climate change, right? And to do so in a process that's equitable and takes into consideration the many folks that live here and would want to live here, right? Two, it means that we're not alone, right? If this is a national crisis, others are working on this too. And that means that we need to try to build as many bridges and work together with Montgomery County, Prince George's County, with the state, with federal opportunities, any way we can to try to make it come together so that we can get actual housing built and actual housing improved, right? And three, I think that we need to keep at the forefront that there's a need for many types of housing. And I am very proud that Tacoma Park has such a huge number of affordable, lower income housing units. And I definitely want us to maintain that. And I want any new development to have some of that. But we also need all sorts of other housing. And I don't want us as a city to not make any progress in trying to make any one development deal perfect and meet every single need, right? We need housing, we need this kind, we need that kind, we have missing middle, we need townhomes. So I'm just in favor of us trying to figure out ways to move forward to actually make progress and actually get those things done. Thanks.
Great, thank you. Mr. Small?
Well, Eric, first of all, I wanted to apologize to Amy for calling her Wendy because of the last name thing. It's nonetheless, what I wanted to say about this is that I have some experience, again, being city manager in a different place and getting two buildings to pencil in an area that was in a floodplain. Using land equity deal structures that were advocated by the Georgetown real estate program. One of the things that we did a lot was try to work with different sorts of entities that had interest in these areas to do as many innovative things as you can. And when you're working on like a shoestring budget that is not going to change very much every year, you have to kind of have those multipliers in the mix. The success of doing that was partly related to both having some skin in the game with regard to having land that the city had to use, but also working the realities associated with trying to get developers to pay attention to a place that they gossip about. And we happen to be a place that developers gossip about. It's a place that we haven't built any new affordable housing interior to Tacoma Park in 40 odd years. There has been a new development or a redevelopment in Ward 6 that's been really well received. And we have buildings that are currently under our rent control program. I don't think any of those things would prevent us from looking at any of the other ways to build affordable housing, whether it be low-income housing tax credits, in which you bring people who are designed to move into the building in order to provide some equity and fairness to the overall structure, or a pilot payment in lieu of taxes, or a tax increment financing program. I think the critical things about any of those would be whether or not the bang for the buck is there for the city. For a pilot program, if the time value of money considerations in the short term and like the lump sum is not going to pay off over time, then there's no value to doing that. If you do a TIF and suddenly the expectations change, or there is some change in inflation or whatever, and those structures are not durable and they don't have endings or structures to ensure within those deals that the city is going to be protected, it would be difficult to be in favor of those things. I think it's important for us to realize that if we're going to continue to have affordable housing, then we need to make more of it. Whether that be making vertical
you.
buildings or whether it be making additional units in people's homes.
Great. Thank you very much. Mr. Goze, any follow-up comments?
Yeah, I'm in favor of a new construction, more houses, and anything. But I'm just pointing out that we need to make it the smart way, so that we can keep giving opportunity to those who are low income to live here. And then building a lot of houses doesn't mean that doesn't mean that the house value will go down. No. So it depends on the cost of the houses. So I'm in favor of new houses, but we have to do it at the smart way to keep some houses at lower cost. Thank you.
Ms. Westlake, any further comments?
Yeah, I just want to add that at the housing forum this past week, when staff was presenting different potential tax credits, I'm generally in support of the idea, because I think anything that will move us forward to actually getting things done, I'm in favor of. And I wanted to point out that one of the things that I found really appealing was that we are looking at a wide spectrum, not just of, say, someone coming in and building a whole brand new building, but how can we incentivize owners of a 4-unit, right? Like a multifamily building with 4 units. how can we incentivize them to upgrade that building so that those folks can be living in a better condition, right? So we need to be looking at the whole spectrum of things, not just one end. So thanks.
Great, thank you. Mrs. Small.
I would say that I was a renter in Tacoma Park. I used to live on Greenwood Circle when Jamana and I were in the beginning stages of our relationship. And so I've also been lucky enough to be a homeowner here. And what I would say about the distinctions between the two is that the pressures that are associated with maintaining an affordable housing structure for your renters and the landlords being incentivized to continue that are not necessarily the same as trying to hold the line with regard to taxes and incentivizing the government to work more effectively with those dollars. I think that the important thing here is to recognize that those are two separate lanes of reality, and that as Tacoma Parkers, I feel like we have an obligation with regard to affordable housing that's consistent with my interest in it from the time that I got out of law school. And it's part of the thing that I'm utterly committed to if I stay in office.
Great, thank you. I want to ask another housing question, and this is really kind of a follow-up, and I think all of you have in some ways already addressed this, so I don't want to beat this issue to death. But I think I heard from each of you that you have a commitment to, or you support the idea of expanding the number of units housing in the city in Ward 6. I also hear a commitment to affordable housing. As has been mentioned, we don't get a lot of development in Tacoma Park. So I'm going to go with you first, Ms. Wesolek, and just, you've mentioned this already to some degree, but just clarifying, how does the city, if it is trying to bring more housing in, how does it do that and at the same time maintain its commitment to affordable housing? What are your thoughts specifically on those two, not necessarily competing issues, but two different issues?
Yeah. Well, I think that it's true that we have not the best reputation of getting things done. So I think that we need to get a couple wins, get a couple things moving. I'm excited about us completing the library project so that we can kind of move on to the next major development in the city. So that's definitely one side. And I had a second point and I forgot it. Can you repeat what you said?
Yeah, it's how does the city both attract housing development specifically, and at the same time maintain its commitment to affordable housing?
Yeah. Yes. So the other thing is that I think that we have to keep in mind that hopefully in regard to housing, we'll soon be at a point where there will be multiple things potentially happening in the city. And we need to keep the global lens of making sure that we offer affordable housing, as opposed to, say, a litmus test that's a really high bar for every single entity to have, right? So I think we as a city are very committed to that. I definitely support that. I definitely support keeping the folks that are in affordable housing, protecting them as best possible, not displacing them, not forcing them out because the payments have gotten too high. But it doesn't mean that every new development has to be a certain threshold of this if, as a city, we are looking at it globally.
Great, thank you. Yeah, Mr. Small?
No, you best say you.
No, but did you go?
Not yet, but you can go first.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Okay.
It doesn't have to be this way.
Oh, sorry.
I'm being fairly random here.
Okay. My bad. I guess what I would say about this is that when you're trying to attract people in to build at the municipal level, the only real thing that we have to incentivize them are the legal structures that we put into place and the quality of the RFP that we put out, if for our buildings or for any other kind of thing. If it's not something that we are building, it's important for us to recognize that we have far less control over what is going to happen there than the person who owns the parcel. I think kind of that this question sort of leads to a discussion about what we're going to do with fairly attractive parcels within the city or big parcels like the hospital area. And I think it's important to recognize a couple of things there. Number one, that we are still in a floodplain. And number two, that we have a real opportunity to have some really dynamic and resilient buildings built because of where we are and what our needs are. I think it was sort of unfortunate the way I think the way the MMPA went down was very unfortunate. I do think that with all candor, there was a time when I promoted CRT from the days as our proposed thing, and it was taken off it was tabled that day, and there were a lot of reasons for that. But the reality is that at the time at which this was happening, there was a lot of advocacy being made towards a consensus building thing, and we were being told that a lot of different things were going to happen, that there were going to be follow-ups from this person and that person, and a lot of those follow-ups never occurred. I was unfortunate enough to lose my favorite person and aunt during the time at which this vote was occurring. So I'm not on record during that voting session. But I would have voted no. And the reason for that is that the CRT framework that I thought was the best one that people argued against and that we had come to some degree of consensus about, contingent upon a lot of information, didn't come to fruition. And in the process of losing my aunt and in the process of trying to deal with consensus when you're trying to talk about democracy, candidly, it's not a mistake I'd make again. It should have been CRT in the first place. It shouldn't be more than 80 feet. It does. If you look at the landscape of the area, the design would be the most obvious. And at some point, we have to figure out a way to do the most reasonable things.
And for our listeners, CRT,
CRT is the designation in between what we did with the MMPA and what you do in direct residential settings. It would have required some public benefit, which is the thing that people wanted the most from the other formula that we currently use. But the public benefit could be broken up into parcels and pieces and whatever. And for whatever reason, there was a decision made within the confines of the city government that that's not what they wanted to do. I personally, having worked in a place where you're trying to build in a lot of different kinds of places, being realistic about the landscapes that you have to build in now with floodplains and resiliency and those kinds of things in play, it was the wrong way to approach it. And it was unfortunate that the discussion got to such a vitriolic and negative place that we couldn't really just bring it back and say, we're not doing the right thing. Thank you.
Great, thank you. So we got just one little clarity there. So, Mr. Gose,
Yeah. So I don't know if we will come back with this question on different way, but what I will say, in everything, we have to remember, like somebody said, we have to remember that we are Portland city where we have a limit. So we don't have that much space to dream some stuff like building many houses as we want. Now, your question was, what can the city do to really have more houses that can be affordable? I think there are a lot of federal and the state program going on to help us, developers and the cities to have a lot of houses. For me, it's for the city to work to take maximum advantage on those programs than just trying to give in credit to to the developer. It's better that we work hard to take maximum advantage on those federal and the state program that help developer or help city to build house. That's the only way the houses will be building can be at a low price. Otherwise, giving just credit to developer, I don't think will help and will be the best solution. Of course, we want insensitive to bring them in, but if we can take advantage on grant programs, federal programs that help people, it will be better. That's what I think. Thank you.
Okay, let's move on from housing, but I want to give everybody a chance in case you have any further clarifying comments.
I did have a clarifying comment on this one.
Okay.
I'd also like to say that in the context of this, if we are going to be able to have a diversity of housing options, like within some of the larger constructions that we have that are just freestanding homes and some of the other stuff, we have to look at the fact that the zoning is not in our control. The things that I mentioned just now, CRT and some of the other those are zoning designations that are pretty complicated and they pay lots of money to people to understand. And those things are supposed to get translated down to the people who live here to make those kinds of decisions. I think one of the things that has been clear to me since the near end of that and going into the future is that having a city manager in place that is capable and competent of making some of these statements to people so that the actual government is responding to some of these concerns without it seeming manipulated or manipulative is going to be to the advantage of everybody.
Okay, thank you. Ward 6, this is a good question for Ward 6, actually. As has been mentioned, and we'll go with you first, Mr. Small. Ward 6 is an economic engine for Tacoma Park. And I think it's, it seems like the last 10 years, maybe 20 years, it's like there's a purple line coming. Maybe the next council will actually see the completion of the purple line, at least through the Tacoma Langley area. Mr. Small, I wonder if you can talk about economic development. You could talk citywide, but I'm also kind of specifically interested in your thoughts in terms of Ward 6, because commercial development is, very likely with the completion of Purple Line. So how can the city take advantage and make sure that it safeguards residents with economic development and commercial development opportunities? Long-winded question. I apologize.
No, thanks, Eric. And I think this is really important because one of the things that we've basically been talking about is whether or not Ward 6 is in transition. And in the traditional parlance of what we would talk about, we would say things like whether or not there's opportunity, or whether or not there is about to be the big G word, gentrification. And I think that those concerns for people who live in Tacoma Park are real. And it's one of the reasons why we have to be adamant about our affordable housing picture. Because the truth is that if you look at that area along the Purple Line, notwithstanding Hogan, the bus depot that Governor Hogan put in the middle of things that doesn't necessarily work very well, or the Purple Line public-private partnership that has been put into play that doesn't necessarily provide any real dividends to people, that along those things, there are a lot of empty stores. There's a giant big box store that has been, or two, that had been empty for a long time, with the anticipation that there is going to be a brand new set of people living in vertical housing along University Boulevard. Maybe not along New Hampshire, because we would probably have more control over that. But the reality is those houses and those parcels and the pressure that's going to be put on those places is going to be real. And so we're going to have to be able to respond to that. I think that as for market housing comes into the area, I think people are going to be surprised at how low for market housing would be rent-wise on the other sides of those lines. the perceptions that people have and the durability of some of the concepts, particularly about either Langley Park or race in the short term. But one of the things that's been proven in Ward 6 over and over and over again is that people from all over the place don't mind living next to each other if they really want to live next to each other. And one of the values and the goals of being in Ward 6 is knowing all of those people and having an opportunity to speak to all kinds of people. And hoping that people are not othered in the places where they shop, and hoping that people are not feeling uncomfortable about what it is that they do. I think at the end of the day, the most important thing for the city, I think, is to maintain the business districts and to provide some uniform legislation about how they may operate. The Crossroads is the only one that has actual legislation pertaining to it because of the amount of money that was coming out of it and maybe some other things. But there is an opportunity for us to standardize some of these things so that everyone in the city has an equal opportunity to put a business in, have someone who's working on their behalf and advocating for them with both the landlords and with the communities,
Thank you.
and provide safety.
Great. Thank you. Mr. Gosing,
Yeah.
commercial development, economic development, how would you as council member advocate for taking advantage of opportunities citywide, but specifically Ward 6?
Yeah. So in reference to the purple line, or just for the whole commercial area?
I bring up the purple line
Okay.
because, so this is just like us you're off the clock for the moment.
Yeah.
I bring it up because there is speculation that it will bring, greater economic opportunities. That may or may not be true, but that's been speculation for many years. So I only bring that up as a specific change agent that may or may not have an effect on economic and commercial development. So I'm not asking a purple line question. I'm asking how would you as council member look to improve commercial and economic development opportunities and also protect homeowners and community? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense for me. So as of today, what I have seen is so we just leave this study to everybody talking about what they think, and I think for the city to solve this economic development and to make that commercial center in Ward 6 more beneficial is to commit, is for the city to work to commit expert to do deep work. It's not everybody can say anything that we think, but that is not the truth. We needed to commit the expert to do strong and the deep study, and from there we can come up with an amendment and bring our input toward our suggestion. Because that one is a big work. I'm a business owner. It's not what we just see and what everyone think on his side. The city need to commit the expert team to work on that economic development and see how we can more benefit. That's what it is. How we can more benefit from that purple land that is going to, how we can make it more economic for the city in in our area that handle the commercial zone. Because as of now, I see we have a lot of business, which is great, but those businesses don't really give that much benefit for the city. So that's why I'm saying that we need more deep study. Otherwise, so of course the city need to support those local business owner, local and the minority business owner, and provide them as much support as they can.
Okay, great. And same question. My apologies if it's convoluted.
No, Well, I wanted to hone in on talking about the businesses at the crossroads, at Tacoma Langley Crossroads, because we do have a lot of businesses there, right? And the thing is that we just need to find the best ways to support those businesses. I met with some folks and they were talking about that, a lot of them, they just need someone to help them figure out how to set up a Yelp page, things like that, right? Like, how can we be helping these businesses so that they can get a better, higher profile, so that they can thrive and be successful? And the other thing is, as if new businesses are coming into the crossroads, making sure that hoping that we can have the best kind of diversity of offerings. And by that, I mean not a glut of just certain kinds of businesses. I know that there was a really large campaign to try to stop another liquor store from going in. And a lot of folks mobilized to try to change that. They were unsuccessful, but it shows that the community really does care about what businesses are there, and that the businesses that are there have an impact on the residents nearby, because there is certain areas, there's a lot of public drunkenness and then the problems with that. So they were like, we don't need another liquor store. We already have a problem with that. So I think what the city can do is just find out the best ways to support the businesses that are there. By and large, they are small business owners, right? So how can we support the strong economic engine that is there, and to make it even more powerful?
Thank you. Mr. Small?
There's a couple of things that I wanted to say about that, and I'm glad that Amy brought up the liquor store issue. If you do real estate, one of the things, if you're doing commercial real estate, is they have this thing called CoStar, which is where they have all the data associated with what they think can be put in any given place. And so the CoStar data said that the Crossroads could suddenly absorb 7 liquor stores in 2 years, essentially. But there are other data points that can be used with regard to development. And I participated in the hearing for the liquor board. It's the second time that I have actually done a liquor board hearing. I did one in Capitol Heights as well. And the frustrating thing about a liquor board hearing is that everyone who goes to those things legitimately thinks that the decision has not already been made.
I'm going to let you go 2 minutes, and then I'll give everybody a chance to go 2 minutes straight. So keep going. You have another
All right.
minute.
Thank you. And the fact of the matter is that that is really often not the case. Whether it be because the attorney's in the room or the pre-existing patterns or dynamics associated with trying to move a community either forward or backward. But at the end of the day, the Crossroads in particular is a vitally important part of this city. It is the highest generator of personal property taxes. Most of the things that we have been able to do that aren't directly related to taking money directly out of people's pockets have been related to that. And so it's important that we continue to move in the direction in which we give real attention to the fact that during that hearing, for example, we had a Indian American person talking about how his lifetime dream was to own a liquor store, but he named it after a Spanish word in order to induce the population. And so we have real issues here that we need to address if we're going to be able to move these things forward.
Okay, great. Thank you. I'm sorry the time is short.
It's all right, man.
Mr. Gose?
So another
Oh,
question,
just-
or you
No,
want
no.
me to?
Do you have any comments, any clarifying comments or additional comments?
No, that a specific project question that my opponent addressing is something that I'm pretty aware of, because I'm, like I was saying at the beginning, I'm a director board member of a Tacoma Langley Crossroad Development. So I can just see I'm a little bit confused because when you don't have the real information, it's sometimes difficult. You can say something that is not related. So even despite what the community has done or what they are saying, so this liquor store has been approved. So there's more than what they are saying, but let's just move on. That one is another whole history that I know pretty well. If I want to talk about that one here, maybe we will lose our time, and then we can talk about it. We can talk about it at a different time. Thank you.
Okay. Ms. Westlake, any other comments?
Yeah, I just want to add that in thinking about some of these things, I care about trying to figure out how to fix things, right? And I'm not a miracle worker. I'm definitely not perfect. But I think with some of these things, it's like, how can we move anything forward a little bit? And how can we let folks know the clear ways they can help make it happen? So I just, that, you know, a lot of these things aren't going to change overnight, but where can we make a difference? Where can we change things a bit? And how can we mobilize people with clear instructions of what they can do to try to make a difference? That's something that I would be very focused on communicating with Ward 6 residents about.
Okay, great. Let's talk about city services and in relation to budget, but you know, specifically to city services. Obviously, when you talk budget, the first questions usually, you know, are my tax rates going to go up? Whether you're homeowner or you're being, you know, a business owner or whatever. So, but the other side of that then is the services the city provides, the economic forecast for the city, the deficit, all those different aspects. The city does offer a lot of services. As I mentioned previously, we have a full service police force. We have a library. We have a recreation program. And in fact, there are plans to renovate the recreation center right there in Ward 6. What are your thoughts on the the services the city provides, and whether you feel like the city is trying to do too much with providing services? And Ms. Westlake?
I personally love that Tacoma Park offers so many city services and that we have so many things in-house. I think it means that we can make sure that our values are very apparent in those different things. My concern is making sure that those services are being equitably shared, because it does seem like a hub of the city services are at this end of the city, to the detriment to the folks in Ward 6, and others are on the more eastern end of the city. So the recreation center, for example, I know so many folks that use the services there. They love it. It really fills a lot of needs for our community. And it is also a building in great disrepair. And it is really not, in my opinion, to the same standard of quality that the city has for other buildings. So I definitely think that needs a lot of attention, and the city and Ward 6, we deserve to have better services there, so that we have a thriving recreation center that can serve the community. And similarly, I just want to raise about how, you know, with the construction here, there's been the satellite location of the library on New Hampshire Avenue, which has just been really fantastic. And I'm sure there's a lot of complications in how feasible it would be to have a second location, but I hope that we can learn lessons from the successes of the satellite library there on New Hampshire Avenue. For example, the library presented here to the council a few weeks back and was saying about how there's just different populations that are using the services there. And in particular, there's a lot of folks that need help using computers, right? And okay, so maybe we won't continue with the satellite library, but how can we have services on that eastern end of the city with computer literacy programs, things like that? How can we make sure that we are helping all residents of the city, not just the folks that might be closest to the existing infrastructure? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Well, we break things up. Mr. Small?
I would say, to begin with, it is my firm position that we keep the library location where it is. The number of people that we serve differently over there, and the change in the way that we are going to be using our library with regard to it being a meeting place and a place for classrooms and community structures, it would seem like it would be an easy lift to maintain both locations. And when I say an easy lift, I don't mean because we don't have to do some things to do it. What I mean is that we have a lot of money tied up in the way that we do our budget into some institutional things that have been set in stone, whether it be the roads or changing things over from vehicles and infrastructure or our pension programs. A lot of those things really probably need to be re-examined to whether or not they deal with the economic flexibilities that we are going to need going forward, and whether or not they deal with the economic realities of people who are really trying to hold the taxes down. The constant yield rate is a guaranteed number every year that tells you exactly how much money you're going to get into your budget compared to what you did last year. One of the things that was interesting and difficult about coming here to talk about budgets is that there's a lot of rules associated with that. And the first time that I read it, since I wasn't naturally a city manager, I read it like a lawyer. And there are things you're not allowed to say, like deficit and carryover and things like that are regular parts of the discourse here that made it really difficult to even figure out what was going on initially. But being a part of making sure that we are now talking about these things in the accurate way, and being a part of thinking about how we can make our actual government money more reflective of what the wishes of the people are, has been a really great thing. When I was operating a government, our budget was significantly less than this one. And one of the things that happened there is we had people who ended up out of college and ended up with certifications, and so they got jobs and they were promoted and things like that. And so people worked hard, and we got a lot done, and it was fairly innovative. And I think we are in a position to be able to do those things here. But for whatever reason, there's an expectation that we're not going to be able to do those things here. And I just don't understand it, because at the end of the day, it makes me feel like we're advocating for our government to be less responsive with more money. And that just bothers me.
Thank you. I've been corrected on misusing the word deficit previously, so I hear you. Mr. Gosei?
Yeah. So in terms of city services, I think so the city is doing okay. And to me, however, we still have a lot of things that we need to improve in terms of performance for each services. We need to reevaluate each services to see what each service costs. That's what it is. So as a business owner, it's not bad to have deficit, because we have to be ambitious and have a big ambition and try to do more for the city. But what is important is to evaluate the services to see what the cost, so what I pay for, what do I get back for the service that I pay for, and evaluate each services to see if they bring in the result for which we pay or for which we have that service for. That's something that's the way I see it. For instance, I offer a free a public notary service to my resident in Ward 6, and I was surprised that, and then I was thinking about proposing that to the city so that they can also offer the a free public notary service. And then I was surprised to see that the city does offer free public service for Tacoma Park resident, and then money costs for people outside of the city, which is great. But what the city does for them, they limited this for just certain days and certain time. For this whole building, can't we find it costs the city $0 to have many people do the public service, so which means they can even have that service for 24 hours in this community center. So like having many people stand for public service, so then and offer this service full time instead of have limited. Again, that being said, I'm saying we need to evaluate, do permanent monitoring for the service that we have to see how we can improve it. If we don't do the evaluations, then that's how we end up of not bringing something additional, or something additional that we offer to our residents. That's what I say.
Great. Mr. Small?
Thanks, Eric. First of all, Ambrose, the chronic illness was making me twitch. It wasn't anything.
Fine.
Okay, good. It's easy to misinterpret things in circumstances like this. I think one of the things that I do want to make sure that we talk about is that, like, when you look at the home rule statute and the conferring statute that and the amendments that confer power onto municipalities as opposed to counties, if we're going to do those things, the reason why all of the things that we have, whether it be the rec center or the police department or our recreation department, exist is because of the abdication of responsibility for those things prior to any of us getting up there. And so, as a part and parcel of the way in which municipalities developed in Maryland, we have robustly not only continued services, but we have enhanced them, in particular with regard to public safety. One of the things that you will notice, and it's going to come up again because Ta-Nehisi Coates is going to be in the news again, is it is a reality that different places are policed differently based on the historical antecedents of police. And one of the realities about here is that there are overseers and other sorts of things, and the reality of how you would police somebody. And to have made the change to thinking about people as humans and continuing to have success in those areas is wildly important. And if we don't do that,
Thank you.
we're going to be in trouble.
Okay. Ms. Wesselek, you have 90 seconds. So-
Sure. Yeah, I just wanted to circle back and respond that I make clear that I would firmly support having a second location of the library, for it to stay where it is or somewhere else in that vicinity. And that would be a top choice. I am also very open to creative thinking on any ways to get better and high quality city services like that on the eastern side of Tacoma Park. And just to briefly piggyback on what Jason was just saying, I think the fact that we have our own police force means that we have so much more hopefully control in what policing looks like in our city, and I'm proud that we have that ability. There's, I'm sure, always room for improvement, but I do take some comfort knowing that we hopefully have a much higher standard for how we treat all of the people within our city, knowing that our police staff is accountable just to us.
Great,
Yeah.
thank you. And Mr. Gose? Yes.
So I'm kind of confused with the question because I can see that my opponent sound to me, maybe I'm wrong, going all over and on to the different direction. So My perspective is a assessment. That's what I'm talking about. We need to do permanent and the continued assessment of the service for each service. So when we're talking about the library, that library, for instance, I will not say the word. It's kind of a shame. Is it because we did not do a strong study before we started? It was a COVID money, and then people sound like do not have a clear vision, and then they stand up, they jump on it, and then project that has at the beginning that was something like I don't think 9 or 10 million. We end up if not even for done yet, and we have additional 4 million, and then all that. So we have a New Hampshire Recreation Center in Watsis. For many time they've been trying to remodel this recreation center and with no success. So that's why I'm saying we need a strong assessment of all services and see why we're trying to do this and it failed. Why this one the beginning cost was this amount and then finally we end up with this one. For the police service, for instance, I have a chance to take a program that they call Ride Along, where you as a resident or anyone, you can go with the police in their vehicle and see what they're doing. And then I took that program to see what exactly they do. Okay, thank you. Come back with this.
Yeah, and we are. It's amazing, but I knew this would happen with three candidates. We're running short on time, and there's so many issues. Actually, just hearing from all of you, one issue I really feel would be important to talk about is public safety. I'm going to invite our listeners to connect with you, and so that's come up several times, and take a look at. Any statements you may have on your websites about that or in social media. I want to ask the climate question, though, and I think in some ways this is related to the city's services in the sense that, climate action costs money, of course. But, as I said in the previous forum, the city has made a commitment to be part of the global effort to reduce emissions, with a goal of zero net emissions by 2035. We won't get into the details on how that's pegged, but that's the goal. And then also we have a sustainability manager, which addresses also on a local level, how the city is providing those specific environmental and sustainable services. So I don't know. Once again, I'm asking a convoluted question, but it's around the issue of climate and sustainability. Do you feel like Tacoma Park is on the right track in terms of its climate and sustainability goals? What would you like to see happen under the council that you will be joining? And Mr. Gose, you can go first.
Yeah, I want to make this honest and straight. Tacoma Park is doing great job in terms of climate emergency. We have to acknowledge that. And then Tacoma Park is the leader in the region of addressing climate emergency. That's something great. Now the question is, how do we maintain our leadership? Because if we don't do anything additional, then that's how you will lose. Tacoma Park is doing a great job. Let's be honest with that one. Now, to maintain this leadership in our community or in our region, we need to continue to set up a new and biggest ambition. We need to be more ambitious. So, for instance, I have degree in water resources management, and last 2 years, the city came up with offering credit, tax credit or whatever credit for those landlords who are willing to build pavement for their driveway or anything that they can have water infiltrate instead of runoff. So now, as of today, how many people were excited with that credit and build new driveway pavement, or how many people has, because of that credit, they change their existing a concrete into pavement pavement. That's what the point is. So is we are leader in a climate emergency, but we is not very is a pointless to set up a credit or to set up program that people are not interested in, because lastly after they set up that credit, I haven't seen in my ward or in the city many people excited to do something, for instance about the runoff. I haven't seen that. I haven't seen anything that either people are not informing with this program, or this is not a benefit for people. Now, don't ask somebody something that you cannot do. The city itself, the city itself, what has the city done in terms of pavement? The city has not done anything. They haven't changed yet the city public parking parking into pavement. The city hasn't yet changed the sidewalk into the pavement. That means what they are asking landlord to do is senseless. We need to come with a more ambition by
Thank you.
yeah. Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Westluck?
Yeah. I too agree that I think that Tacoma Park does a lot on this front, and I think that we are and have been a leader, and I hope that we continue to do that. And I think that the way that we do that is by always keeping that lens when we look at anything. And I know that that's how how the city council already looks at projects, right? That every time you're looking at it from that environmental lens to make sure to see, okay, is what we're proposing, can it make things better? Or is there room for improvement? Is it making anything worse? I hope not. So I think that the city is doing a good job, and I think that we need to continue to maintain that. And it means that we just have to keep funding the things that are going to move it forward. In my neighborhood, in recent years, we were very lucky to not only get a whole new playground, which is an amazing playground, but also there was a lot of work done there for stormwater management because we live right along Sligo Creek. So, you know, doing more of those things, preparing our city for the coming decades and what that might look like. So I'm glad that we are doing a lot, and we just have to keep prioritizing that.
Thank you. Mr. Small?
Thanks, Eric. I think at a base level, I agree with both of the other candidates. I think at a larger level, if you look at how forward thinking Tacoma Park was at one point, and how the other jurisdictions, in acknowledging how forward thinking we were, have sort of come up to the line. One of the things that has been clear to me from the participation of people who come regularly to meetings is the devotion that we have in the city for environmental issues. My personal opinion and concern is that we are moving to a phase where we should be thinking about resiliency more than we're thinking about sustainability now. Because the realities are that it looks really lush and tropical for most of the year in our neighborhood, and it didn't used to look like that. That the rain that we get is a fairly regular rain of exceeding amounts, and when the people come to do our appraisals for the water damage, they always say that it's because our roofs are angled at an angle with the different gutters, and that everybody in the neighborhood is going to be dealing with these kinds of issues. And I do think that the city has made some inroads on talking about private landowners or people with stormwater issues or substantive issues that are affecting the larger construct being helped by the city. And I think that as we move into a federal posture, hopefully that is more focused on resiliency. We take advantage of some of the commitments that we have from other council members who are running unelected, and the commitments that we have from the people who are in the room regularly or our staff. That there's going to be a lot of area here to be thinking about whether or not we have the right data sets associated with rain, or if we need to be thinking about how we're going to redo all these streets, whether or not we're going to put in permeable pavers. Permeable pavers are expensive. That's the one thing I can tell you. And so a lot of these things are going to have to change if we're going to make these kinds of changes. And I think it would be fun to be involved in it.
At this time, thank you. At this time, I think we'll just move to closing statements. Everybody can go home and get some dinner if you haven't had it already. So let's see. I'm trying to think. We started with you, Jason, right? So let's see. Let's mix things up. Let's let Amy go last, and Ambroise. See how I'm so tired. I'm reverting to your first names. Ambroise,
whatever.
Ambroise, can you can go first with the closing statement?
Okay. So I wish we can have there are a lot of subjects that we did not go through, which is okay. And what I will say for now, running for office is I think is a good thing. And when you are running for office, you don't go with your own decision. You have to do a lot of homework in terms of research to get data. And it's from there you can make a decision. If you don't do study to find out about more data statistics, then that's how you will be city council member and be just talking about what do you think, which is not necessarily correct. And as of today, I think we need somebody like me. That's what I would say. That's why I'm running, to come up with a new perspective. Is very important. We need someone who will be creative. And for me, working from government, private company to have my own business, I think I'm creative to do this job well. That's one. Second, at this moment, you don't go to the city council just with your own decision to make things happen. We need city council members that have a respect to residents, all other staff, so that the collaboration can be good to get things done. That's very important. We want the city council that have easy access to everyone, and so that they can work. It's about teamwork. It's not about one person work. And then finally, we need someone who has time. This is a time-consuming job. So you don't just focus on your own thing and just stand up and go to the council, and then it's not about the time that when you are running for office, you don't go there just to spend the time for the meeting that they handle every week, but you have to work behind and find some data so that you can make a great decision. Otherwise, we think you will be going with your own mindset, and then think that you are giving great response, which is not always true. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Jason?
Thanks, Eric. I think that the elephant in the room related to this and the conclusions is that it has been an interesting time trying to communicate with the ward on a variety of different issues for a variety of different reasons, whether it be the internal politics of the council, whether it be the realities of executive sessions, or whether it be not really wanting to be a negative influence on what I think is a really positive opportunity. And that is that we do have our first black mayor. A lot of times in the history of my life, from being gifted and talented black child to every elected position or state finalist for Rhodes Scholarship or Yale Law School, that in any of those times, there are some consistent things that you see about the inability of America to come to account with regard to its destiny as a democracy in which every single person feels like they are well vested. There was a time in the world where character and the development of a consistent framework of philosophy as opposed to sophistry. Gentlemen. Where being about meaning was more important than being about form. And knowing the rules and working them well was more important than who you know. As we got onto this council, I was thankful, genuinely thankful to have had the amount of experience that I had to deal with the NDC decision, to deal with the labor decisions, to deal with the hiring of a new city manager, and to deal with what had become a really acrimonious relationship between the powers that be, however you want to construct them, and the ability to conduct oneself in government effectively. Being skilled at rhetoric is not a vice. Being skilled at legal maneuvering is not a vice. And these are all the things that I was told my whole life are going to be the things that were of value to a municipal entity. I've never worked in any other situation or circumstance besides trying to do the right thing for people. And I'm proud of what I have done given the circumstances. If anybody would like to talk to me about anything, I am always available. Thank you.
Thank you. And Amy?
Yeah, thanks, Eric, for excuse me, for hosting this and moderating it. And thanks to everyone who's here in person and watching online and taking this all in to participate in our democracy. I appreciate it, and I think we all do. If you were to walk around my neighborhood in Hillwood Manor, you would see that I've been very humbled to have a lot of the support of my neighbors. And I raise that because those are the people that know me. I've been in my home for 12 years, my wife and I. And some of those neighbors, they've been there for decades. Some of them have just moved in the last year or two. But I know most of the folks in my neighborhood, and they know me. And when they found out I was running, they were so excited and wanted to support me. And I'm very grateful for that. I say this because I intend to meet as many of the Ward 6 residents as I can, because I hope that if they get to know me, that they too might think that I could be a good leader and a good representative for our part of the city on the city council. I ask folks to just pay attention, get to know me and the fellow candidates, see who they think would best represent them and their values and their voice for our city as we move forward. And I hope that I might be that choice of a positive voice, someone who'd communicate well with the residents and with the staff, with fellow council members. And I hope that I could be someone to bring people together, fix problems, and to make our city and neighborhoods even better places to live. Thank you.
Great, thank you. I forgot to do this with the last forum. If you have a website, can you let us know how people can find out more about you?
Yeah, my website, it's amyfortacomapark.com.
My website is agossea.com. AGOSSEA.com.
Okay.
My website and Facebook page are Jason Small for Ward6.com.
All right, great. Well, I think Ward 6 is lucky to have all three of you vying for this seat. And I have to say, Ward 6, home of the Red Apple Market, you know, there's a lot going on in Ward 6. And, you know, if you are from a different ward in the city, make sure that you don't lose out. Right. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.